Picture this. It's a completely pristine, sunny Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
June 28th, 1990. Two TWA flight attendants are sitting inside Casa Gallardo, which is this lively, brightly lit Mexican restaurant in Bridgeton, Missouri.
Oh, yeah, really popular spot.
Right, so they're just decompressing from a flight, enjoying a casual lunch. They're chatting over the hum of the restaurant, eating chips and salsa.
Sounds perfectly normal.
Exactly. But then one of them casually glances out the large pane glass window. She's looking at the manicured landscaping just like 3 feet away from their table. And right there, nestled under a decorative bush, is a human skull.
Oh, God.
Yeah. There is still dark, damp dirt clinging to the bone. It's literally just sitting there in the mulch, staring back at them.
See, it's a profoundly jarring image. You have this completely mundane reality of a suburban restaurant, right? The clinking glasses, the laughter.
Yeah, the chips and salt.
Exactly. And it just collides instantly with absolute atmospheric dread. It totally shatters that illusion of safety we all just, walk around with every single day.
It really does. You realize the monsters aren't always hiding in the dark. Sometimes they leave their secrets right out in the daylight.
Yeah, they really do.
And that macabre discovery, that is the gateway into today's deep dive. We are looking directly into the raw case files, the original police incident reports, and the chilling interview transcripts surrounding the incredibly bizarre disappearance of a 27-year-old mother named Linda Sherman.
Who basically just vanished into thin air in April of 1985.
Right. So our mission today is to reconstruct this case for you, the listener. We're going to navigate through this terrifying web of coercive control, suspiciously staged scenes, and a mystery that honestly still haunts her family today.
Because in the world of criminal investigations, things are almost never as they seem.
No, they aren't. And this case is going to profoundly challenge your assumptions about how well you actually know the people in your life. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to understand how a human skull just ends up under a bush in 1990, we really have to rewind the clock back to Wednesday, April 24th, 1985.
Right, the beginning of it all.
Yeah. So Don Sherman walks into the Veneta Park Police Department in St. Louis County to report his wife, Linda, missing. And looking at these original police reports, Don's timeline is, it's almost suspiciously specific.
Oh, totally.
He tells investigators he hasn't seen Linda since Monday. He claims she got home from her night shift at the National Personnel Record Center around 3 a.m. on Monday morning.
Okay.
And then they supposedly argued for an hour. She slept on the couch. And then later that morning, she drove their 9-year-old daughter, Patty, to school.
Right. And then Don tells the police that at 6:45 p.m. that evening, Linda just rushed out the door to go back to work. And he gives the police this meticulously detailed description of what she was wearing.
Which is always a red flag.
It is. He says she's wearing a blue jersey with the number 76 on it, a matching 76 graduation necklace, and he specifically notes she drove off in her yellow 1971 Volkswagen Beetle.
But then he adds this one more crucial detail to the timeline, which is it's so strange.
Yeah.
Don claims she briefly returned home at 8 p.m., while he just happened to be standing outside talking to a neighbor.
How convenient.
Right. He says the yellow Beetle pulls onto the street, idles for a moment, and then just abruptly leaves again.
Hold on, though, because looking at the witness transcripts, this is exactly where his story completely fractures. A neighbor seeing someone driving a car at night does not mean they saw Linda.
No, not at all.
When investigators actually tracked down that specific neighbor to confirm the sighting, the neighbor admits they couldn't even tell who was driving the vehicle.
Yeah, they had no idea.
Right. They couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman because whoever was behind the wheel was intentionally hiding their face. That is not an alibi. That is a decoy.
It's totally a decoy.
That is someone driving her car, making absolutely sure they are seen by Don's neighbor to establish a false timeline.
Precisely. You are looking at the literal mechanics of deception here. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you really have to look at how guilt manifests in early police interactions.
Yeah, the staging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fast forward 2 days to Friday, April 26th. Linda's sister, Fran, and her brother-in-law, Sam, are frantic. They are scouring the entire city, and Don suggests they check a specific hotel near the St. Louis Lambert International Airport.
Because he claims Linda sometimes stayed there, right?
Right, which is just such a highly specific, strange suggestion to make to her panicked family.
So Fran and Sam go to the hotel, and obviously they find absolutely nothing, but they figure, well, we're already by the airport, let's just check the short-term parking lot.
Right.
And sure enough, sitting right there in this vast sea of cars is Linda's yellow Volkswagen Beetle.
Now, you have to consider the timing here, which is documented in the police dispatch logs. At the exact moment Fran and Sam discover the car and call the airport police, Don Sherman just happens to be standing inside a local 7-Eleven.
Oh, this part's wild.
It really is. He's chatting casually with a local police officer. Right. And Don casually suggests to this officer, hey, maybe we should have the airport police check for Linda's car.
He actually says that.
Literally as the words leave his mouth. Dispatch radios in that the missing woman's car has just been found at the airport.
It is the most deeply unsettling coincidence. Wait, he was literally with a cop when the call came in.
Yes. Standing right next to him.
Wow, but here's where it gets really interesting, because the car wasn't just left there randomly. The airport parking logs proved the car had been sitting there for days.
Right.
And there was absolutely no record of Linda boarding any flight. I mean, this wasn't an escape. This was a staged scene.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the psychology behind staged crime scenes.
Yeah.
In criminal behavioral analysis, there's this core principle. Guilty parties often try to orchestrate the investigation.
Like a magician forcing a card.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
They try to lead investigators directly to the evidence they want found. They want the police, or in this case, the desperate family members, to feel like they discovered the clue organically.
But the perpetrator placed it there to build a highly specific narrative.
Right. And in this case, the narrative Dawn wanted was that Linda simply abandoned her family, drove to the airport, and took a flight out of town to start a new life.
And if Linda didn't run away, we really have to look at why Dawn wanted the police to think she did. Peering into the case files regarding their marriage, I mean, it paints an incredibly dark, suffocating picture.
It's horrific.
Dawn told police that Linda was having an affair with a coworker named Randy and that she ran off with him. So investigators tracked down Randy. He admitted to a 4-month affair, but he blew Dawn's story completely out of the water.
Because Linda wasn't running away with Randy.
No. She was meticulously planning to leave Dawn for good. She was just trying to survive.
Yeah, and the preparation of a victim trying to escape into intimate partner violence, it's often desperate, but it's also incredibly systematic.
You can see it in her actions.
You really can. Linda's actions, documented right here in these files, show a woman who was meticulously preparing a lifeboat. She had secretly rerouted her mail to her sister's house so Dawn couldn't intercept it.
Right.
She cleared out her and Dawn's joint safety deposit box. She even took her daughter Patty's birth certificate and kindergarten report cards and hid them inside her personal locker at work.
Which is just heartbreaking.
It is. These are not the actions of someone leaving their child behind to run off on a whim. These are the actions of a mother securing her child's foundational documents so they could escape together.
And she had to hide those documents at work because her home was a literal surveillance state.
Yeah.
We hear the term coercive control a lot, but this case file shows exactly how it paralyzes a victim. It's not just physical abuse, it's the psychological warping of your reality until you have absolutely no safe space left.
Nowhere to hide.
Don admits to investigators that he used a long-range listening device, something he casually called a big ear.
A big ear.
Yeah. He had manually rigged it directly into the basement phone line to secretly record every single one of Linda's conversations.
The sheer audacity of that admission is just striking. When the lead investigator, Lieutenant Michael Webb, questions Don about these wiretapping rumors, Don doesn't even deny it.
No, he's proud of it.
He is. He nonchalantly walks the lieutenant down into the dark basement and physically shows him the wiretap setup. He treats it as completely normal marital behavior. He felt entirely justified in owning her privacy, monitoring her every word.
It's like a prison warden proudly showing an inspector the guard tower, completely oblivious to how terrifying it is.
That's exactly what it's like.
But I gotta say, the most haunting detail in this entire deep dive isn't the basement wiretap. It's the memory from 9-year-old Patty.
Oh, this part is just gut-wrenching.
Remember how Dawn told the police that Linda drove Patty to school that Monday morning? Well, investigators interviewed Patty, and her memory shatters Dawn's timeline entirely.
Because Dawn took her to school that day.
Right. Patty said that was practically unheard of. Dawn never did the school run, and as she was leaving the house, she looked into the living room. She remembers seeing her mother lying perfectly still on the living room couch, her face pressed deeply into the back cushions.
Oh, man.
Linda never stirred. She never said goodbye. That image of her silent, motionless mother is burned into Patty's mind forever.
It's a chilling detail that completely recontextualizes that entire morning. And it really underscores a grim statistical reality in domestic abuse cases.
Which is?
The most dangerous time for a victim is the exact moment they try to leave. The abuser senses the ultimate loss of control, the realization that their surveillance and manipulation are no longer working, that triggers a swift and absolute escalation to lethal violence.
Because she had everything in place.
She did. She had filed for divorce just weeks prior. She was literal steps away from freedom.
And that silent image on the couch is the last time anyone saw Linda. For 5 years, she is just a ghost. Until that sunny Thursday afternoon in 1990 shatters the silence.
Back at the restaurant.
Right. The flight attendants find the skull outside Casa Gallardo. The Bridgerton police are called to the scene. And what do they do with this massive break in a potential homicide?
It's unbelievable.
They dismiss it, they wave it off as a youthful prank.
The rationale the police used at the time is, well, it's difficult to digest, and it reveals a massive systemic failure. They claim the skull must have been a prank tied to cemetery relocations happening at Washington Park.
Which was a real thing happening, right?
It was. We have to understand the context here. Washington Park was a historically black cemetery in the area that was facing tragic systemic mismanagement and neglect. Because of airport expansion and highway construction, graves were being displaced.
Right.
There were genuine heartbreaking issues with remains being disturbed. But the police used that very real historical tragedy as a convenient bureaucratic shield.
To just avoid doing their jobs.
Exactly. Why initiate a complex homicide investigation when you can just blame it on a cemetery relocation? They boxed up an unidentified piece of human remains and literally shelved it in the county morgue for over a year.
They used a systemic tragedy to avoid doing paperwork. They just left her on a shelf.
Yep.
Until September 6th, 1991. The tension in this specific police report is palpable. A clerk at the Veneta Park Police Department is sorting through the Daily Mail. She picks up an unsealed envelope. There is no return address.
Okay.
She opens the flap, and inside is a bright orange promotional flyer for a Casa Gallardo Super Bowl special. But when she turns the flyer over, meticulously stamped on the back in purple ink, letter by individual letter, is a message.
Oh, wow.
The Bridgerton police have L. Sherman's skull.
The calculated nature of that letter is extraordinary. I mean, dental records immediately confirm the tip is accurate. The skull belongs to Linda Sherman.
Right.
But the context of where it was found shifts the entire gravity of the investigation. Casa Gallardo wasn't just a random location chosen for a prank.
Not at all. It was Don Sherman's second home. According to witness transcripts, Don practically lived at this restaurant. He was there 5 nights a week.
5 nights a week.
The staff knew him so well they had a personalized hat rack with his name on it. And police records confirm Don was physically at the restaurant the very day the skull was discovered under the bush.
Unbelievable.
But wait, we have to question the logic here, right? Why in the world would a killer leave the victim's skull at their own favorite hangout? Like, that isn't a bank robber dropping their ID in the vault.
No.
That is a pyromaniac sitting in a lawn chair watching the house burn while literally holding the matchbox. Why would anyone risk that?
It's a vital question, and it really goes to the heart of criminal psychology. In behavioral profiling, we often see killers revisit or utilize locations where they feel safe, known, and dominant.
Okay, so it's a power thing.
Absolutely. For Don, Casa Gallardo was his kingdom. Leaving the skull there, if he did, it might seem completely counterintuitive to a rational person. But to a killer operating on a god complex, it's the ultimate thrill.
Just mocking them.
Right. Killers frequently believe they are vastly smarter than the police. Placing the most damning piece of evidence right in his own backyard while he is literally sitting inside having a drink is a display of absolute control. He is daring them to connect the dots, confident that even if they do, they can't prove how it got there.
And Don certainly had a unique, deeply twisted relationship with the justice system that fueled that arrogance.
Oh, the lawyer.
Yes. Yeah. When Don officially filed for divorce from his missing wife, claiming abandonment, he hired an attorney named Frank Anzalone. Now, Anzalone was a well-known, high-powered criminal defense attorney, not a family law practitioner.
Right, which makes no sense for a simple divorce.
Exactly. Why hire a criminal defense lawyer? Well, the family history hidden in these files explains everything. Frank Anzalone was the exact same attorney who represented Don's mother, Audrey, back in 1974.
And that 1974 incident provides a dark psychological blueprint for everything that follows.
It really does.
Don's mother, Audrey, shot Don's father, Charles, in the back, killing him in their family home. And Don was physically in the house when it happened.
He was right there.
Now, how did she avoid a life sentence? Frank Anzalone brilliantly leveraged claims of domestic abuse and intense household dynamics to secure a massive plea deal. Audrey served only 6 months in jail for killing her husband.
6 months. So Don grew up seeing firsthand the loopholes of the legal system. He learned that you can commit murder within the family home, and with the right legal maneuvering, you can practically walk away free.
It absolutely shapes a person's worldview. He felt invincible.
And according to his ex-girlfriend, he wasn't quiet about it either. We have interview transcripts from a woman Don dated after Linda vanished. She told investigators that Don once asked her to box up Linda's leftover photos.
Wow.
And when she expressed concern about, Linda coming back, Don allegedly bragged to her, "I killed her with my bare hands."
It goes beyond a simple, boastful verbal confession, too. The ex-girlfriend claimed Don pulled out a green and white aerial map of his family's hunting property, which was located about 90 miles south of St. Louis.
Right.
He allegedly pointed to a specific spot on the map near a river and told her that the rest of Linda's body was buried right there, deep under a concrete slab.
But despite that terrifying, highly specific confession, the physical evidence just wouldn't materialize. I mean, in 1999, investigators pushed for advanced soil testing on the dirt found clinging to the skull, hoping to chemically match it to the hunting property.
Right, they brought in cadaver dogs, they searched the woods.
But they found nothing conclusive. The agonizing reality is that knowing who did it and proving it in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt are two entirely different universes.
This raises an important question about the limits of the justice system, especially when dealing with individuals who meticulously destroy evidence and manipulate their environment. Don moved on with his life, but the pattern of violence didn't stop.
No, it didn't.
Years later, Don's second wife filed for a restraining order against him, explicitly citing that he had strangled her.
Strangulation. The exact, silent, intimate method of violence you would expect if someone killed their spouse quietly in the living room while their child slept just down the hall.
It fits the profile perfectly.
And speaking of that living room, when the police finally secured a warrant to get inside Don's house years later to execute a search, they found something deeply, deeply disturbing.
Yeah, this part it's hard to hear.
He still had the exact same living room couch, the very couch where Patty saw her mother lying perfectly still all those years ago. He kept it.
It is a chilling monument to the past. But despite all these psychological markers, the horrifying confessions, restraining orders, the case files ultimately reflect a story of systemic failure and agonizing, unresolved grief. The investigation slowly starved of resources.
It did. Lieutenant Webb, the investigator who dedicated his entire life and career to finding justice for Linda, tragically passed away from cancer in 2009.
Such a loss.
And then Don Sherman died in 2015. So with the prime suspect dead, the institutional urgency evaporated entirely.
Which leads us to the ultimate institutional betrayal that Linda's daughter, Patty, is facing today. When you read the current status of these files, it is a bureaucratic nightmare.
An absolute nightmare.
The original agency, Veneta Park Police Department, was absorbed by a larger entity called the North County Police Cooperative. And the cooperative now claims they cannot find the full case files. They deny even being the lead agency responsible for the investigation.
It's like finding out the library burned down just as you located the exact shelf holding the book you need to save your life.
That's exactly it.
They just washed their hands of it. A woman was murdered, her skull was left outside a restaurant, and the police department is basically saying, not our problem, the paperwork is lost. It leaves this case entirely orphaned. A victim's fight for justice just erased by jurisdictional shifts and a lack of resources.
It highlights a tragic reality. When a case loses its champion like Lieutenant Webb and gets caught in the gears of administrative consolidation, the victim is victimized all over again. The system forgets them.
But you don't have to forget them. We need you to care about these cases that fall through the cracks. If you are listening to this, public pressure is the only thing that forces institutions to look for those lost files.
Absolutely.
You can contact the North County Police Cooperative's general line at 314-428-7374 and respectfully ask them to locate and prioritize the Linda Sherman homicide file. And please, if you or someone you know is experiencing intimate partner violence, you are not alone. Reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233, or you can simply text the word START to 88788.
Because when we look back at all the evidence, the timelines, and the psychological control, there is still one element of these case files that remains a gaping, unresolved anomaly.
Yeah, there really is.
If we operate on the theory that Don killed Linda, we have to look very closely at the creation of that anonymous letter sent in 1991.
Which leaves us with a truly chilling thought for you to mull over. Think about the physical act of creating that envelope. The unsealed flap, the bright orange Casa Gallardo flyer, the individual purple ink stamps meticulously spelling out, "The Bridgeton police have L. Sherman's skull."
Someone took the time to make that.
Exactly. Was it Don taunting the police in an act of supreme arrogance? Or was it someone else? If it wasn't Don, that means someone in his inner circle knew his dark secret.
That's terrifying to think about.
Someone sat down in 1991, stamped that message, and sent it to the police, ultimately deciding that a hint was enough to clear their conscience, but that full justice wasn't worth risking their own safety. What does it take for a witness to live with a ghost for 30 years?
I can't even imagine.
To know that a mother was taken from her child, to know exactly where the evidence is, and to stay silent while the dirt clings to the bone, just inches away from where people are sitting, completely unaware, eating chips and salsa on a sunny Thursday afternoon. So what does this all mean?